coronavirus comes close to home, we'll take a look at the impact on Chapman students abroad, and we'll try to separate fact from fiction about the virus.
Who's left in the race for the Democratic nomination? We have the latest from Super Tuesday and from the campaign trail.
And a landmark change for Chapman hopefuls. What's different about the 2021 Chapman application? All that and more on this week of Chapman News.
From Dodge College of Film and Media Arts, this is Chapman News.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jared Brosnan.
And I'm Jules Rector. Welcome to Chapman News.
Breaking news on the coronavirus. Now 14 people in the U.S. have died from the virus as California and Los Angeles declare states of emergency. We have the latest on this developing story. California health officials are scrambling to test some of the passengers aboard the Grand Princess cruise ship held off the coast of the state. Test kits were lowered to the ship and results are expected later today. Officials say at least 21 people have developed symptoms like those of the virus. The state also reported the first death from the outbreak, a 71-year-old man who recently returned from a cruise aboard the Grand Princess. Cruise line officials say that 61 people currently on board were also on the ship with the patient who has died. The state is ordering insurance companies to waive out-of-pocket costs for coronavirus testing, joining a trend of states hard hit by the virus.
The stock market continues to suffer from the coronavirus as the fear of a looming financial crisis grows. The Dow Jones was down 750 points at open this morning, with big hits to airline, industrial, and energy stocks this week. This as the president touts last month's job report, though critics say the report was compiled before the coronavirus hit. Also this week, the Federal Reserve cut key federal fund interest rates by 0.5%. This as companies continue to make changes to counter the spread of the virus. Big names like Amazon are telling employees to work from home, and airlines like United, JetBlue, and Lufthansa are limiting domestic flights, with Lufthansa grounding a fifth of its fleet.
And the president signed an $8.3 billion emergency funding bill after it passed through Congress with bipartisan support. The aid bill will provide medical supplies, support to hard-hit areas, and pay for vaccine research. And President Mike Pence is expanding testing for the coronavirus, but he's made clear there aren't enough tests to go around, falling short of the million test kits that were supposed to be made available. New CDC guidelines now allow any American with a doctor's order to get tested.
Here in Southern California, we have 3 cases in Orange County and 11 cases in Los Angeles County.
Although the risk for all of us here in OC is still low, Chapman students abroad are directly feeling the impacts of the virus.
Those studying abroad are now being given the opportunity to return to the U.S., and for some students, it's their only option. Anna Montemore has more on the developing story.
Sophomore student Mark Lang's study abroad experience was cut short once he was told that his program was canceled due to the spread of coronavirus.
Saturday morning, I woke up and we were told that the school is canceled and that mainly all U.S. abroad programs were canceled in Italy.
This cancellation was due to a Level 3 travel advisory notice issued by the United States, alerting travelers to avoid any non-essential trips to Italy.
Saturday morning, the school was like, you guys need to be out of your apartments by Friday, March 6th. So I had very little warning. So that was tough.
As a result, many insurance companies have pulled out of the abroad programs, leaving students overseas uninsured.
For me, it made more sense to come home just because I wanted to be covered by medical, health, and life insurance at home.
According to Jody Hicks, the assistant director of overseas programs here at Chapman, states that at this time, most students are returning to their permanent residence and will receive instructions from their program to complete the coursework online. And as for some students, leaving is not an option, this including sophomore Jared Formanek, a part of Chapman's Semester at Sea program.
Coronavirus has basically affected our entire semester at sea voyage. I think at first we thought it was going to be this little blip.
A blip that has now changed the program's whole route, limiting their access into other countries.
If you look at a voyage map before, most of the voyage is Asia. You have Japan, China, Vietnam, Malaysia, and India. Those are our first 5 ports. And now if you look at the voyage map, it's Japan, Vietnam, Mauritius. We skipped most of Asia.
Changes in the route included a new port, Seychelles, but even that didn't go as planned.
because Seychelles was a place where no matter what country you were from, you could get into it without a visa. Then we found out the night before we were supposed to get to Seychelles that we were denied entry to the country.
Jared and his semester at sea peers are left on the ship until further decisions are made about their route. And as for sophomore Mark Lang, he has arrived back to his hometown in New York and is taking his courses online to achieve the credits he would have in Italy. For Chapman News, I'm Anna Montemore.
With the virus coming closer and closer to home, we have Dr. Jerica Lamb in studio to separate fact from fiction about this outbreak.
Dr. Lamb is a professor in the Chapman School of Pharmacy, runs an outpatient clinic for AIDS victims, and is an expert on viruses. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Lamb. So this week, Los Angeles County and the state of California declared a state of emergency for the virus. What does that mean for us? We're obviously right up the road from LA, we're in California. How should we really go about our everyday lives now?
Well, first of all, the state of emergency, what it means is that our state is asking for more funding from the federal government in terms of testing kits as well as resources for infrastructure for patients who are diagnosed with this disease. So what does it mean for Orange County residents and LA residents? What it means is that just go on with your normal lives. It's not an emergency where it's an apocalypse right now. People are not dying, things are not falling from the sky, but that it's just a warning that there are increased risks, there are outbreaks going on, and we just have to take precautions as we go on with our daily lives.
Yeah, and President Trump said this week that he thinks the mortality rate is much lower than the 3.4% reported by the WHO. How dangerous is the coronavirus?
So the coronavirus, in essence, if he's referring to the 3.4% reported by the World Health Organization, it is actually lower in the U.S. So, but relatively, the WHO representing the World Health is taking statistics from Japan, from China, Italy, and South Korea as well. So that's why the percentage is higher. But in the US right now, the percentage of death or risk of death is also rising. As we are having more testing kits, we're going to have more diagnoses. So I anticipate that there's going to be an increase in incidences as well as infections. And as we already heard in Washington state, there have been 11 deaths already. And primarily most of them occur in the elderly patients, in the very sick, and basically frail patients.
We've seen a lot of people rushing to stores to buy up on hand sanitizer, water, and also face masks. Should we be wearing them?
I would not recommend face masks for healthy individuals such as Jules, Jared, and myself. And for others, the face masks are meant to protect those who are already sick, who are symptomatic, to prevent them from actually spreading the respiratory droplets from either their cough or their sneezes. So healthy individuals should not be wearing face masks, but they should be staying at home if they don't need to go out in crowded places.
And let's say we're in crowded places, we're in public, should we also be shaking hands?
Very good question. So right now the recommendation is maybe a fist bump, maybe an elbow tap, but not shaking hands. And if you do shake hands, just make sure you wash your hands with soap and water or with hand sanitizers.
And another big thing people are kind of wondering is that, will the virus lessen with warmer weather?
Yeah, very valid question. To be honest, we don't know how this virus is mutating. And what I have shared with others before is that because this virus is occurring in other countries such as Australia, which is their summer now, which is hot, it does not make sense that this virus is dependent on cold weather, not like the flu virus or H1N1. So as the scientists are finding out more information about this virus, we cannot make definite answers to say that it would wane by March, the end of March or April. We don't really have the answer for that right now.
And are you optimistic about the spread of the disease and like maybe the possible cures?
I am optimistic about the cures and hopefully a vaccine in 1.5 to 2 years. But in terms of a treatment for this virus, scientists are working very hard, fast and furious, in terms of clinical trials in China and other places. They're also using a drug that was approved for the Ebola vaccine last year, remdesivir, and the company that's sponsoring that is now focusing all their efforts in Wuhan, China, where the epidemic began.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Lamb. Very informative. I think our viewers will be glad to know all of this new information.
Thank you.
In a week, the entire political landscape has changed. Vice President Joe Biden, his campaign nearly dead a week ago, staged an incredible comeback. Michael Karabit is here with more. Michael?
Thanks, Jules. This week has been filled with Democratic delegates and dropouts. Today, the Democratic frontrunner is Joe Biden. The former vice president won 10 states on Super Tuesday, including Virginia and Minnesota, where Bernie Sanders led just last week. Now Biden is leading nationwide in both the popular vote and the delegate count, bringing him much closer to the nomination.
We need a president who can fight, but make no mistake about it, I can fight. But look, we need as badly, someone who can heal.
As of this morning, the two frontrunners are just 75 delegates apart. Biden has 648 delegates, followed by Sanders with 573, making the race tighter than ever before. But by the end of the night, all eyes were on you. That's right, California and its 416 delegates were the night's top prize, and the victory went to Bernie Sanders. Sanders had been campaigning all over California ahead of Super Tuesday. During his visit to LA, I had a chance to speak to one volunteer who was definitely feeling the burn.
He demands that we think bigger than just one candidate or one election or even just what's in it for us personally. He, I think, is a once-in-a-lifetime candidate. Please don't give up. This is an important election. This is one of the most important elections I think we'll have in a long time.
Sanders is popular with young voters, but they did not show as much support on Super Tuesday. Across the country, the number of voters ages 17 to 29 dropped from 2016. According to the Washington Post, only 1 in 8 voters were between the ages of 18 and 29, and about 2/3 of the votes came from people 45 and over. Before Super Tuesday, Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar suspended their campaigns and threw their support behind Joe Biden. And after spending over $500 million of his own money, former New York Mayor Mike Bloomberg also dropped out after disastrous debate and primary performances. The final dropout of the week comes from the only woman left in the race, Elizabeth Warren. She announced the end of her campaign with an emotional speech outside of her home in Massachusetts.
I will not be running for president in 2020. I say this with a deep sense of gratitude for every single person who got in this fight, every single person who tried on a new idea, but I guarantee I will stay in the fight for the hardworking folks across this country who've gotten the short end of the stick over and over.
And where will the delegates awarded to those candidates go? Well, they'll be divided among the remaining candidates at the Democratic National Convention in Milwaukee this July. But of course, election season is far from over. Next week, 10 more states and territories will cast their votes for the nominee. And shortly after that, the final Democratic debate will take place. That's been your political update. I'm Michael Karabit. See you all next week.
But California didn't just vote in the presidential primary on Tuesday. Statewide, Proposition 13 was defeated by over 500,000 votes. The measure would have put $15 billion of state funds into rebuilding public schools and colleges. In local politics, Katie Porter won the primary race for representative of California's 45th district, but failed to meet the 50% voter threshold. That means she'll face her Republican challenger, Greg Raths, in a runoff election this November. And Chapman's former dean of communications, Lisa Sparks, also sought Porter's seat, but only mustered up 4.1% of the votes.
Officials are investigating LA's new voting system that resulted in long lines at polling booths. Los Angeles voters had to wait anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to cast their votes. Officials say the lack of computer check-in stations as well as technical problems caused the delay, and supervisors pushing to find out why. There are no plans yet for an official investigation. And Orange County gets a gold star for voter turnout. The city of Orange alone saw 40% higher voter participation than in 2018. So thank you, OC, for using your voice and your votes.
And coming up on Chapman News, big changes are coming to Chapman admissions. We spoke with one student about what this change will mean for him. Coming up on weather, at least 25 people killed and others missing after deadly tornadoes struck Tennessee, and our 5-day forecast.
Honorary Forest Ranger Betty White here, lending a hand to my dear friend Smokey Bear. Because for 75 years, he's only said,
only you can prevent wildfires.
But there's a lot more to say. Like, if you park your car on tall, dry grass, the hot exhaust pipe can start a wildfire. So keep the animals safe, especially the cute shirtless one. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Chapman University is making changes to its admission policies. Take note, future students. Our Rudy Juarez Pinedo has the story.
Enrique may not be a baseball player, but the love for the sport is there.
The leadoff runner on second base right now to start the bottom half of the second, so let's see if the Roadrunners can get a run in, hopefully.
Covering the latest game for his school's newspaper, Enrique has goals of becoming a sports reporter. Right now, he's in community college, but he has Chapman University in his sights after hearing about the game-changing news, giving future students a none-of-the-above option when it comes to their SAT and ACT scores. Chapman is following a trend of universities going test optional across the nation, 37 alone in 2019. After studying its own students, Chapman decided a GPA is a better predictor of how a student will do in school than the scores from a one-day test. This new policy benefits both the student and the university, giving students with a strong GPA but low test scores the chance to shine. It also encourages more low-income and minority students to apply. In Enrique's case, his test scores are decent, but he has strengths in other places.
So I think where I stood out a little bit was more being part of the yearbook staff and just overall my GPA and grades throughout high school.
Enrique's professor sees him more than just a test-taking student.
I think he is overqualified. I'm telling you, the guy's gonna go cover baseball right now from 2 to 5, for example. That's dedication alone. Okay, most college students that take my journalism class, there's maybe a handful that I can say are Chapman material.
A teacher at heart, Wendy knows there's many talented students out there with potential.
They could have the 4.0 GPA, they can do everything they can in their power, but they just mess up on that one test. And I don't think a person should be defined by a test.
Enrique hopes to transfer next year. In the meantime, he'll keep studying, keep hustling, and have his goals in focus. For Chapman News, this is Rudy Juarez Pinedo.
Chapman University's test optional policy will become official in fall 2021. We hope to see you soon in Chapman News, Enrique.
White supremacists strike again at Chapman in the wake of Super Tuesday. The Patriot Front white supremacist organization is accused of vandalizing many parts of the campus with their propaganda. The signs were spotted in multiple places across campus. President Strupa, in a message to the university, called for unity in the face of hate and stated that the university will have no tolerance for these kinds of groups.
17-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg does not agree with the EU's proposed new climate law. The law will require the EU to be carbon neutral by the year 2050 and is the basis for a European Green New Deal. But Greta Thunberg accused the law of being nothing but empty words. Some climate activists in the United States are also pushing for a Green New Deal.
Reporter Jada Sandu is in San Pedro, where protesters are gathering for Fire Drill Friday. Jada?
Thanks, Jules. I'm here at San Pedro City Hall. Crowds are dispersing, but just a few minutes ago, hundreds of Fire Drill Friday activists were gathered here to bring awareness to the ongoing danger of fossil fuels in these Los Angeles communities. Their main goal is to implement safer and more sustainable energy sources moving forward. The climate change protests have come from Capitol Hill to California. This is not a drill, but it is Fire Drill Friday. Inspired by 17-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg, actress Jane Fonda is taking to the streets for her own climate demonstrations. These protests aim to bring political attention to climate change. Being taken away in handcuffs won't stop them, and these activists have demands. In California, the main focus has been on the fossil fuel industry, calling for more sustainable resources through a new Green Deal. They are also asking to transition off of fossil fuels. This includes not allowing for any new fracking sites or wells. I got the chance to talk to a local high school environmental teacher here, and she handed me this brochure. It outlines 50 solutions to the problems that they presented at the rally today. But until these demands are met, Fonda and the other activists will continue to protest. They're also planning to hold demonstrations in Bakersfield, Sacramento, and other regions of California. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Jada. 25 people are dead after a devastating series of tornadoes in Tennessee this week. The tornadoes ripped through neighborhoods in Putnam County, destroying more than 48 structures in Nashville. In North Nashville, the African American community was hit especially hard in an already gentrifying neighborhood. Many fear the tornado will only be a catalyst for further dissolution.
Unfortunately, this isn't the only weather disaster to hit the South this week. We have Flo Singer in our weather center to talk about the severe thunderstorm warnings. Flo?
Thanks, Jared. Now let's take a look at what it's going to look like today in the South. So at a glance, you can see the wind gusts are coming from Tennessee, heading southeast through Alabama, affecting parts of Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. There are also severe thunderstorm warnings affecting these regions, as well as these red zone, which is tornado alerts. All of this happening south of those affected by the deadly tornadoes earlier this week in Tennessee. Now let's head over to the West Coast today. In Orange, it is 69 degrees, partly cloudy. So if you have planned any outdoor activities or walking to the circle or hanging out with some friends at the park today, I would absolutely take advantage of this beautiful weather. Now let's take a look at our SoCal forecast for today with the highs. Today up in Santa Barbara, it is 65 degrees, Los Angeles 71, Avalon 64, Anaheim 72, Oceanside 65, San Diego 67, up in Big Bear Lake is 54 degrees, and Palm Springs 86. Now let's take a look at our Orange County forecast. In Westminster, it is 65 degrees, along the coast Newport Beach 65, Laguna Beach 64, San Clemente 64 as well. Our high today in Orange is 72 degrees, Irvine 70, and Mission Viejo 71. Now let's take a look at our 5-day forecast for this week in Orange. Like I said today, it is partly cloudy with a high of 72 and low of 54. Tomorrow we will be expecting some cloudy skies with a high of 64 and low of 51. On Sunday we can expect some partly cloudy skies with a high of 68 and low of 50. And on Monday, we'll expect more cloudy skies with a high of 73 and low of 57. And on Tuesday, we'll finally get that rain with a high of 66 and low of 56. Now that was your weather forecast for this week. I'm Flo Singer. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Coming up on entertainment, we'll tell you all the things that have been canceled or delayed due to the global outbreak of the coronavirus.
For the first time since winning the national championship, the baseball team is not the #1 team in the country. Find out where they rank coming up after the break.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. As it turns out, we have very similar personalities. And this cat makes me make art because he's always motivating me to take pictures of him, to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. It's just that simple. Well, he's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
What's up, everyone? I'm Brad Benson, and welcome to the Best Campus Sports Show. It's been a tough week for the baseball team. The Panthers dropped out of the #1 spot following a 1-2 series loss against Cal Lutheran, where the Panthers gave up 19 runs. The pitching woes continued into an exhibition game against Westcliff, with the Warriors putting up 16 against the Panther bullpen. This game, the first of 5 consecutive non-conference games, none of which will affect Chapman and SCIAC standings, and the team is currently 4th in conference at 3-3. The women's tennis team has now dropped 2 straight, most recently to number 16 ranked Mary Washington. Despite the loss, sophomore Lisa Antonova upset the number 19 ranked singles player, and fellow sophomore Tatum Phillips held her own on court 1 to win her match as well. The ladies will be back at the Lassiter Tennis Center on Sunday at 2 p.m. Another tough loss for a Chapman team this week comes by way of women's water polo. The team has yet to pick up a win this season, and that losing streak continued into its match against Whittier. The Panthers held a lead at the end of the first quarter before a 5-0 run by the Poets, and ultimately losing the match 11-16. It's no secret that generating excitement for Division III sports is difficult, but there's a new club on campus that's looking to change that. The Panther Pack started over interterm, and they are hoping to generate some support for our student athletes here at Chapman.
And they just need some hype around it. At the end of the day, every athlete has friends. Friends want to support their friends, and that's just been the biggest thing, and just make sure we're riding on that and making it a good time over there.
Chapman has many successful teams that have received national recognition, and fans like Jimmy want to make sure that athletes receive the support that they deserve.
I want to see the athletics here prosper, and I want to see them have a great time with more of a support network for them. Just bring more spirit to Chapman sports, and publicize all sports games and get to know players and break the barrier between students and athletes.
The Panther Pack is still in the process of becoming an official club, but until then, you can follow them on Instagram at Chapman Panther Pack for more information. The softball team swept Occidental over the weekend, thanks in part to Michaela's shutout victory, and in honor of that sweep, we're going to be playing some fungo golf with a broom. We're going to be going from foul pole to foul pole and finally back home. Lowest score wins. Let's go. Are you kidding me? You just had your first shutout at Chapman this past week. Did you feel any differently? Did you know that it was just like an on day? What was going on Friday?
Yeah, well, the whole team showed up, and that made it really easy for me to pitch good, because then I know my team's backing me up. That just hypes me up, and everything goes way more smoothly like that.
Are you one of those pitchers who likes to isolate yourself in the dugout, or you're one that's still keeping positive energy, still talking throughout the game?
Both. There's a good mix between both of that. I like having my time to think about what I just did on the field and how I should improve the next inning. But there are also times where I'm yelling because my teammate's doing so good hitting. So yeah, it's a mixture of both.
You're from Hawaii and your family has a fishing company. What to you is more satisfying, making good contact with the ball or reeling in a big tuna?
Oh, those are really, really close. I can't answer that. You can see Michaela and the rest of the softball team this weekend against Whittier. For Brad Benson and Michaela Tokunaga, this has been another edition of Athlete of the Week. Well, that's the latest in sports this week, but don't go anywhere. Kim Becker is up next with entertainment.
Coming up on Entertainment, an exclusive interview with the author of the upcoming book, The Works of Bong Joon-ho. It is?
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kim Becker, and I am so excited to be making my entertainment hosting debut. And while I was so excited to take a break from that hard-hitting everyday news, it looks like this is not the time for that. Because the worldwide coronavirus epidemic is affecting almost every industry you can imagine, and that does not stop with entertainment. But at least we still have Baby Yoda to give us some hope, right? Well, only if you pre-ordered the toy, because Hasbro has confirmed that the production of their Baby Yoda toys in China is being slowed by the outbreak. And it doesn't stop with toys, as the global film industry is experiencing some of the hardest blows, with losses reaching $5 billion, which is expected to rise as the virus begins to impact other markets. At risk are some of this year's most anticipated films, like the new James Bond film, No Time to Die, which was set to come out in April, but the release dates have been pushed back to November in hopes that the virus will ease up by then. At least production is finished for 007, but unfortunately I cannot say the same for Mission Impossible 7 and The Amazing Race, which both have had to put their shoots on pause. Or the more than 20,000 music events that are canceled due to concerns of the outbreak, including Miami's biggest music festival, Ultra, which is canceled for the first time in the festival's 21 years. And it seems like Prince William doesn't seem to care about missing out on some amazing films and music, because he's too busy joking about the global hysteria during his visit to Ireland this week.
You
know what, Prince William? I will be dramatic, because I have to wait even longer to see some of my favorite movie reboots. And while the not yet released films are struggling from the pandemic, movies named after other medical urgencies are actually doing surprisingly well. Steven Soderbergh's 2011 movie Contagion becoming one of the hottest movies in the Warner Brothers library. And there has been an announcement that Parasite is being turned into a graphic novel after becoming the first non-English speaking movie to win Best Picture at the Oscars. But the graphic novel is not the only hard copy to be released this year about the works of director Bong Joon-ho. We sat down with one of his colleagues, who just so happens to be a Chapman professor, to talk about her book on his many films.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
Like many of us, Dr. Nam Lee didn't think that a foreign film would win the Oscar for Best Picture.
I only predicted that it will win 2.
But at their Oscar viewing party, she and her friends were pleasantly surprised when Bong Joon-ho's Parasite was announced as the winner.
It was a complete joy for everyone when he won not only 1, but 4 at once.
And luckily, she predicts this won't be the last we see of Korean cinema dominating Hollywood.
I think it will open up for more Korean films and film talents to Hollywood.
I can definitely say that I am looking forward to seeing more award winners come out of Korea. And it also sounds like I'll be seeing more of Batman around town now that he's got a new whip. For the upcoming film titled The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz, the director Matt Reeves teased Batman's new ride on Twitter, giving us an exclusive look at the iconic Batmobile. Thank God Batman is coming out of hiding, because he is definitely one of my favorite superheroes. And also breaking out of hiding, the Dixie Chicks, with the release of their first new music in 14 years. Their comeback begins with the women's empowerment anthem, Gaslighter, which is number 2 on iTunes and is just a taste of the full album coming out in May. The Girl Power Anthem is just in time for International Women's Day on Sunday, which I will definitely be celebrating with my ladies. I'm Kim Becker, guys, and that was your entertainment enlightenment for the week.
International Women's Day is this Sunday, and while a majority of the world is celebrating, closer to home, a Chapman student is calling attention to the inequalities women face in our own community. Our reporter Lindsay Arabian has the story.
Marissa Quezada is a co-chair on Chapman's advisory group on the status of women. For International Women's Day, the group is raising money to donate feminine hygiene products to homeless shelters.
Menstruation is the most natural thing that can happen.
During a visit to a local soup kitchen, Marissa was surprised by the lack of menstrual products.
There were just a small box of pads there, and that was supposed to be enough for the entire homeless women population that they had there.
The advisory board made it this year's primary focus at the International Women's Day Resource Fair in hopes that their efforts will start a conversation on campus.
In a place like a university is the best way and the easiest way to start talking about things, and then that could create action in the future.
Marissa believes that even though awareness is important, it's not nearly enough, and that women around the world need to keep fighting for their equality.
We're not done. Feminism isn't over, and we still have a long way to go.
This is Lindsay Arabian for Chapman News.
To join Marissa, email her at mquezada@chapman.edu with questions, ideas, and suggestions. Happy International Women's Day!
When it comes to space travel, some lucky students are getting in on the action. NASA challenged students from kindergarten to high school to pick a name for the new rover, write an essay about why their name should be picked. The results of the contest have just been announced, and Alexander Mather, a 7th grader from Virginia, was declared the winner. And the rover will be now named Perseverance. It is said to arrive on Mars next February. And no, Alexander will not get to go on the ride.
Man, I would be so upset. I've always wanted to go to space.
Yeah, I'll go when Elon Musk or Richard Branson finally has the money to get their space luxury liners going.
Yeah, and then maybe we could do Chapman News from space.
That'd be a hefty live
Right?
view we'd have to do, yeah.
Well, don't miss an episode of Chapman News. Check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Chapman News.
And follow our social media accounts at Chapman News.
I'm Jules Rector.
And I'm Jared Brosnan. Have a great weekend.